Hello and welcome to the channel The Great Britons. And we have an absolute cracker for you today. I do hope you're going to enjoy the content. And if you do, then please do click the like button. It does make a big difference to us here on the channel. It enables us to grow and to push out some more content for you lovely people. So sit back and enjoy. And today we're going to be talking about Lord Louis Mountbatten. I guess the guy had got so many achievements you could probably talk about him all day, but there's just one particular thing that really appealed to me. I guess my background was in logistics, and Lord Louis came up with something which I think is wonderful, and just really wanted to talk about it. Um, it's a thing during the Second World War, and it was an secret operation called Operation Pluto. The acronym standing for Pipeline Under the Ocean. Yeah, what about that? And Lord Louis came up with the idea in 1942, which was some real sort of forward thinking here on this one, because this was all about, okay, eventually, sooner or later, everyone in the know, as it were, recognised that there would have to be a D-Day landing on the shores of France, and that was all well and good, obviously getting all the various forces to land was one task. But of course, once they were there, they'd got to advance into northern France and beyond. Now, that was going to take a great deal of fuel, and to obviously enable the tanks to make progress. And Lord Louis was, with his sort of responsibility for logistics, was well aware of that. Now, I guess the issue of a pipeline had been considered by a lot of people on both sides, and the Germans had spent quite some time on this one, and were firmly of the view that there was, because of the particular sort of geographical location of the channel, it had some very, very strong tides, and that any thought of laying a pipeline was just out of the question. In fact, they considered it as being totally impossible, because they thought, well, within 2 or 3 days, the tides are just going to move the pipes all over the place, and they're just going to tear, basically. So there was just no possibility of building any kind of pipeline, and they further thought that if all they got to do was continue to sink a certain amount of shipping coming over, bringing fuel to France, that they could easily keep on top of the situation and restrict the amount of fuel that the British forces would have access to. So that was their view. So the Germans, and the British, obviously, knew how many tanks were deployed at that time, and how many tanks were likely to be needed in the event of an invasion, in the form of some kind of D-Day landing. So those quantities of fuel were actually fairly easy to for both sides to sort of work out, if you like. You knew the consumption, the MPG of these tanks, and how far each day they might be advancing, and so on and so forth. So it was actually not too much of an onerous task to actually work out, how much of this stuff would be needed. So, as I said, Lord Louis came up with this idea and worked alongside his colleagues and petrochemical companies. And the idea that they came up with was that the pipe would need to be buried. It would need to be quite flexible, and it would need to be protected against the elements. I think when most of us think of pipelines these days, we think of these ginormous things where you can almost stand inside them. So we're not talking about that at all. We're not talking about these ginormous modern day pipelines. In fact, what they came up with is quite incredible, really, because these pipes were typically 3 or 4 inches diameter. So that's around about 100 millimeters or less, which is actually a smaller pipe than you would find as a waste pipe in a bathroom, for example. So there really were very, very small diameter pipes, but that also made them easier to actually dig a small trench at the bottom of the channel and to bury them. And they ran sort of, several of these pipes to a couple of different parts of France. They didn't bother with shipping lanes or anything like that. They didn't need to. They just took a straight line from England to France and said, right, what's the shortest distance? Let's just put these pipes in. Now, it was very important not to alert the Germans to what was going on. And, for that reason, what they had to do was to, at the point where the pipes came ashore, they need to, in some way, make the pumping stations look sort of quite innocuous. And for that reason, they were kind of disguised as just commercial premises. In fact, one of the pumping stations was actually mistaken for an ice cream factory, and that's the kind of thing. It's so that when the Germans came over and took all their did all their aerial photography, and then took it back to Germany and analysed it, there was nothing untoward. They looked at it and thought, well, it's not worth bombing these things. It's just an ice cream factory, so we'll leave it alone. And that was very clever. And also, the British were very aware that whilst France was occupied, or large parts of it were anyway, that the stations would have to be of a temporary nature until such times as D-Day came about and the landings proved to be successful. So they needed to come up with some temporary structures and temporary ways of actually providing these facilities. So, like I said, they were using 3 and 4 inch pipes. They could, readily work out the pumping availability of how much these things could process. And, started off slowly, testing the integrity of the pipes, as you would expect. and then gradually built up to production numbers. But they actually got to a point where they could realistically move under the sea. They could move about 1 million gallons a day, which is yeah, pretty impressive. It really is. And like I said, the Germans were confident that that they were kind of bombing a certain amount of ships bringing fuel across the channel, which we would continue to do. Otherwise, the Germans might smell a rat, as it were, and think, well, hang on a minute, there's something going on. So shipping continued to bring fuel across by sea, by surface sea, I should say. And so there you go. So it was a question of making the Germans feel relaxed, that they were in charge, that they were on top of things, while secretly we were bringing across 1 million gallons a day. So that really is quite incredible. As like I said, it was from a logistics point of view. I think it's very, very impressive what the guys achieved, and ultimately had a major impact on the successful D-Day landings. So there we are. Lovely story of one of, I'm sure, many achievements by Lord Mountbatten. I'm filled with admiration for the guy. I mean, that was some serious forward thinking. And yeah, good on you, mate. Nice one. I do hope you've enjoyed the content today. If you have, then please do click the like button, and we'll catch up with you soon. So from me, thank you very much indeed, and bye for now.